Okay, folks, it's been a couple days. I am feeling a little sick, so sorry if I'm going to be coughing more than usual for this one. But I really was kind of sick. I was also a religious holiday, the holiday of Simchas Torah. But that's not the topic of the video today. So, 2 days kind of off the grid, I got to finish a new book that I bought from Amazon. It's by a radio host whose show I sometimes listen to, discovered him from the Dave Rubin Report. It's called Republicans Buy Sneakers Too by Clay Travis. And I was actually anticipating this book a lot. And I was worried before I would get it that all of the themes and topics that it would cover would kind of already be played out. And, that he wouldn't say anything that hadn't been said already. But I was actually pretty surprised to see that, even things that, there's the expression, I don't know if it's an English expression or not, but there's an expression that says um, grinding ground flour, grinding flour that's been ground already. I don't think that Clay Travis did that in this book. In fact, I would say that he kind of showed what an author is supposed to do, which is not just expose his opinion of a topic, but give really broad survey that shows what the real problem is, and explains not just the problem, but his proposed solution for the problem and how it started, everything like that. I'm sorry if it's a little out of the order, but this is probably the only book I've done a review on that isn't directly politically related. Although with a title like Republicans Buy Sneakers Too, of course it's politically um, it is political in some way. Now, let me just say, I, like a lot of people who might vote Republican, typically, we're not very happy with the Republican Party, and we don't always feel represented by the people that it sends to the government. And I think the title kind of says more broadly, it's not Republicans buy sneakers too only, but you have to be aware that when you make a decision that is politically motivated related to your business, you have to be prepared to lose a certain amount of customers that might say, well, I don't really need you to make some sort of social commentary while I'm buying lemonade or whatever. Let's say that you go out and you're walking on the sidewalk and you see a couple kids selling lemonade, and as you're handing them the 2 quarters for your glass of lemonade, they said to you, "Oh, by the way, um, you know." They would say, by the way, feel the burn, let's say that. Or, by the way, uh, we remember our dear departed Senator John McCain. It's like, I'm buying some fucking lemonade, man. I'm just buying some fucking lemonade. I don't need to hear your bullshit. So, in any case, so the source of the title was an alleged remark made by um, Michael Jordan, the greatest, who said this apparently, uh, according to some author of a biography of his in the 90s. And what Jordan was saying was the reason that he does not wade into politics is that he's built himself a brand that is universally a signature of success. It's a signature of being a champion. When you talk about the Air Jordan brand compared to, let's say, a brand like, Dockers jeans or something, the Air Jordan brand is universally regarded as a sign of success. If you look at Dockers jeans, it might be that once in a while they have a nice. I think it wasn't. I think Brett Favre was with Wrangler, but it's not as if when you saw Brett Favre go up into pull on a pair of Wrangler jeans that you were motivated to go out and buy it, or maybe a certain demographic of the public was motivated to go out and buy Wrangler jeans. But I doubt it was as successful as Michael Jordan, because Michael Jordan, be it as it may that he was a bald black guy, was just he had a magnetic personality and he knew how to market himself much better than a typical white athlete. And like Brett Favre. Brett Favre was a great athlete, did not know how to market himself. So what's the subject of this book? I know this is getting long, and I was kind of doing this off the cuff, so it's not exactly the way I thought I would go. But we're gonna get long. I think it's gonna be about 20 minutes long in the end. But so Clay Travis delves into the whole issue of sports and sports media becoming more and more political, and he often compares some of the modern social justice uh, social justice statements made by athletes to the ones that were made in the 70s or earlier the 60s by people like especially Muhammad Ali. I would argue Jim Brown, for example. Well, I think he did mention Jim Brown briefly, and those people at the time were actually fighting for a complete overhaul of the legal and social fabric of this country. And the difference today, and I think I'm kind of broadly summarizing Clay Travis's point, is that the athletes today, when they're making these social statements, they're not trying to upend the social and legal fabric of the country. They're actually, in many ways, they're supported and buttressed by it, and they rely on it. Imagine, if you will, that some of these athletes, if they were to I mean, most of these athletes that are successful in getting out their message of social change happen to be Democrats. The Democrats are also Second Amendment people, anti-Second Amendment people. Now imagine if these guys, these athletes, guys and ladies, could not hire armed security when needed. Okay, because there would be no. They're able to afford armed security, and therefore they don't necessarily need the Second Amendment. Now, let's get more into specifics about what he says in the book. Okay, so he has a number of chapters. I don't want to kind of put words in his mouth. So, chapter 1 was kind of delving into a little bit of the issue of the fact that here we go. Sports united us, and the games themselves entertain us. They helped to keep us sane amid an increasingly insane political and global environment. Until that is, everything changed, and ESPN, the most powerful source in sports media, decided to turn into MSESPN, the nation's most far left-wing mix of politics and sports, and every other sports media and entity followed their lead. So let's understand this. Clay Travis is not a conservative by any. I mean, even I, who I consider myself kind of like paleo conservative. I would look at him and I'd say, yeah, definitely. His viewpoints. For example, he repeatedly says he's pro-choice, pro-gay marriage, what was the other one he said? And he's consistently voted for Democrats his entire life, voted for Barack Obama, and he says that sports has become far left wing. And then you have the First Amendment and boobs for the introduction, which I should have gone through first, where he documents an incident, which is one of the first ones that got most of us to notice who Clay Travis was if we didn't know who he was already, which was when Brooke Baldwin kicked him off of a CNN broadcast for saying that the only things that he could rely on with fair certainty were the First Amendment and boobs. And she wouldn't even say the word boobs. She said BOBS. And I think for many people it was a sign of how stupid ESPN had become. This is a network that, on the regular features salacious allegations of sexual conduct by Donald Trump through people like Michael Avenatti. I believe he's been on MSNBC and CNN regularly since, the whole Stormy Daniels thing broke out. Another thing he discusses, chapter 2, ESPN and Mike Conley. A very good chapter, very good chapter, by the way, was how ESPN got itself into trouble in terms of its business model, because they decided that in order to prevent competition from encroaching on a lot of their broadcasting deals, they would overpay for a lot of these sporting events, even though eventually, like it became at a certain point obvious that people would look for streaming options and other things that were not cable dependent. and yet ESPN overpaid for them. They overpaid for a number, for especially I believe the NBA was the most famous example, and he likens it to the fact that Mike Conley had a contract for, uh, I think he still is under contract for over $30 million a year because he happened to become a free agent at the time when the NBA suddenly had this rush of basically free money because ESPN was willing to overpay so much for broadcasting rights, and that's basically how one of the reasons that ESPN has gotten itself into the mess it is in today, and that was a great chapter. I think of all of the chapters in that book, that's the one where I learned the most. Let me see. The next one would be dragging the sports media left. So that kind of is a theme of the whole book, and it goes into the issue of Michael Sam and the fact that he came out as gay and then he gets drafted into the NFL by I believe it was the Rams, and it became a major social media event. And that's the one. This is the one where I slightly disagree with Clay Travis on, but it's not a material disagreement. He cites that as the point at which he believes that sports media became overly political. And he does cite the earlier example of Rush Limbaugh as a precursor to this. Sort of like, you know how Iggy Pop is considered proto-punk, and then you'd say, like, let's say the Clash is like the punk movement or something. And so, in any case, so Rush Limbaugh was his proto-example. So I would cite a number of other examples. Now the one where I believe that you saw that ESPN and other sports media began to really lose their minds was, I think, 3 years 3 years prior to the incident with Michael Sam. And I will discuss that in brief, the Sam issue. But when Hank Williams was fired from Monday Night Football, that was the one that I think I was like, this is retarded. Come on. This is a guy, he's a hillbilly. They had him on Fox News. He said that Obama and John Boehner meeting and playing golf was like Hitler meeting Netanyahu. Nowadays, you would look at that and you would say that, first of all, Hank Williams is a country singer. He is not really, paid by ESPN in order to give his political takes. He was paid in order to give the theme song for Monday Night Football, which was a great song, by the way, for Monday Night Football. Even as corny as it was the perfect song. And ESPN was like, no, well, we want somebody who's not going to engage in political hyperbole. And you might have thought, back in 2011, that might have been a good idea. But in reality, I would say a lot of people looked at that and they said, well, first of all, Hank Williams Jr., we don't give a shit what he thinks. He's the theme song guy for Monday Night Football. He doesn't play in the game. He doesn't go to, he's not in the broadcaster booth, none of that. Who cares? Who cares? But they kicked him out. And that, in my opinion, was the real turning point. And I could be wrong. A number of other precursors that I think would have been good ones. And I don't believe he admitted them on purpose, but, this is kind of very minor criticism. Because other than that, there's good moments in the book, and then there's great moments in the book. But some of the ones that were left out, just giving my opinion, were the John Rocker article in Sports Illustrated, where Jeff Pearlman basically engaged in character assassination against John Rocker for saying a number of things where, I think he called, I don't remember which, I think it was like Ruben, I forgot what the guy's name, but he called, I think, a Venezuelan player a fat monkey or something. And he like said a lot of things about people who have AIDS on the subway in New York and why he hates New York so much. And he sounded basically like a good old boy from Georgia. But if you really look at John Rocker in the years since then, did John Rocker actually ever attack anybody? Did he ever physically abuse somebody? Has he ever gotten into any legal trouble as a result of his political views? No, he's basically lived the life of a model citizen apart from an article in Sports Illustrated where he let loose a bunch of bullshit that people do. They engage in some shooting the breeze with it was kind of dumb if you think about it, talking so candidly to a writer. It could be that Jeff Pearlman tricked him into saying some things that would have gotten like big headlines. In any case, that was a big moment in my mind. Another big moment that he met that was not mentioned in the book was the Latrell Sprewell incident when you probably don't remember. This was before anybody actually was a fan of the Golden State Warriors, which is those are the Golden State Warriors I grew up with when they had a lightning man as a logo. So Latrell Sprewell strangled PJ Carlesimo, who was his coach at the time. I think it was like in 1999 or something. And I'll even look it up. And so it's good I don't have the screen display on for this one. So, there was a book written in response to that called $40 Million Slaves, because somebody had, okay, this was in 1997, and he was suspended for 68 games. And as a result of that, somebody wrote this book called $40 Million Slaves. Which was by so it's by William C. Roden, and he was making this argument, this black writer, that notwithstanding the fact that Latrell Sprewell never went to jail and he was never fired from his job after trying to strangle his coach, he was making the point that he was a $40 million slave and basically he had no look. I have many, many issues with the economic model of sports and how it deceives people into believing, most people, if they would dedicate themselves to something, a lot of these people who want to be athletes when they grow up, they have to realize that there's not that many slots open, and they should hedge their bets and follow something that will probably get them a higher chance of success and a higher chance of getting a job in that field. That, in my opinion, is a legitimate commentary. What that book did, and what many other people in the wake of it did, was it was saying that even an athlete who commits an infraction that was unquestionably violent, and I guess Carlesimo, you could take the side. Oh, he's basically attacking Latrell Sprewell and making him and denigrating him. Look, the guy is your coach, and you can request a trade. You can call your agent and tell him that you want to renegotiate the terms of your contract or something. There's all sorts of avenues besides strangling your coach and getting suspended for 68 games. And the irony behind that, I think, is that I believe it was after that he got some sort of big deal with the New York Knicks. So he gets some. He got some sort of crazy contract for them, and it's like, what the hell? And by the way, while he was suspended, he was charged with reckless driving for his role in a 90-mile-per-hour accident that injured 2 people. He spent 3 months under house arrest and as part of a no-con. So notwithstanding that, and notwithstanding many other incidents, so somebody wrote an article where they said, a whole book where they said he was a $40 million slave. Now, sorry for that segue, for that digression, I mean. But we're still talking about Clay Travis's book, and I apologize for that. But I might actually make an abridged version of this. So then there's another great article or chapter here where he talks about the social media trap, where there's a huge disparity between the way the world appears on Twitter and the way it appears when you walk outside and actually talk to people. And I can relate to that. Actually, a progressive writer that I follow on Twitter named Michael Tracy actually remarked after Cuomo defeated Cynthia Nixon in New York State in the recent primary. He said, this is the clearest representation of why Twitter does not show the opinions of the actual electorate. And I think that Michael Tracy was great in his honesty there. So in this case, he goes through a bunch of incidents where basically ESPN and a number of other networks they tailored their decisions to whether they were getting positive responses or whatever on Twitter. And in my opinion, this again, this was an amazing point that I think that I've heard other places, but Travis makes it very well. Um, so he says, by 2012, I had published 2 books, had a successful local Nashville radio show, and my website, Outkick the Coverage, was beginning to thrive. I figured out how to use social media as a promotional vehicle for the content I was creating on my site, and it was very active on Twitter. ESPN was not yet MS ESPN. In fact, they were assiduously focused on remaining blandly inoffensive and ensuring that they stuck to sports. The most common social media minefield the company faced in 2012 was the question of what to do about jokes in Bill Simmons' ESPN columns. So then it goes into a bunch of you know a bunch of stuff about that, and then it says, I've learned this a reality now, but in 2012 I was still of the opinion that Twitter was real life. If it used to be Twitter was where I went to escape real life, now real life is where I go to escape Twitter. My Twitter obsession was ridiculed by former FS1 president Jamie Horowitz when he told me, this is what I really want to read. He told me reading your mentions was pathetic if you were on TV. Horowitz said, I spent too much time on social media, not just me, but everyone like me in sports media. And he said he thought it was dumb. Why do you read your mentions? He asked. You don't walk up to strange people on the street all day asking them what they think of you. So why would you care what strange people online think of you on Twitter? You're the person with the opinion. You're the talent. People. So this is a brutal honesty from a Fox Sports executive. People talk about their opinions of you and your opinions to other people. You don't talk with them about their opinions of you. That's fantastic. It's kind of like a douche way of saying it. Then it goes into the Kurt Schilling versus Jamel Hill. I've talked a lot about Jamel Hill on this channel, and I think it was it's a great topic. And he approaches it as far as the fact that Kurt Schilling was fired for a post on his private Facebook page about transgenders, while Jamel Hill was very frequently able to use her platform as a directly as an ESPN contributor, as the host of SC6, which was the Sports Center version under her up until I think earlier this year. And she was basically using the network as a vehicle. She was using her workplace as a vehicle for her political opinions. And this was a huge mistake for ESPN. And I would argue that Jamel Hill is the exact reason why people don't like not just Jamel Hill. Okay, sorry if I just pick on her, but her, Max Kellerman, and a number of other ESPN personalities. I think Bomani Jones, for example. A lot of these people are mentioned in the book anyway, but I've mentioned some of them in these videos. And the reason is this, okay? And Clay Travis cites a number of very similar cases, but Jamel Hill, when she was writing about Michigan State, she was in her element. She was. I mean, obviously she's a grad. She knows a lot of people in the community. She has an alumni network that she can cite. She knows people. There's really what to talk about, and she can provide unique perspective on it, and it would make sense for her to be focused on Michigan State sports. Once she was given a platform to opine about things that have nothing to do with her own area of expertise, she basically flew off the handle and expressed basically things that are her own I guess hot takes, but they're not ones that are based off of a real understanding of the situation, such that by the time she started calling Donald Trump a white supremacist on TV or on Twitter, and she started saying, for example, that people should boycott NFL games, even though her network broadcasts some of them. By that time, people were suddenly aware. The emperor or the empress has no clothes. She's basically somebody who looks at herself as this fountain of knowledge, whereas she sounds like basically anybody else on TV. And even more than that, it's not as if this is somebody who has real sports talent. It's not as if you're hearing from. I mean, everybody was talking about the Serena Williams thing a couple weeks ago, and it's kind of died down. The one thing you can say about Serena Williams is she has amazing accomplishments under her belt. What does Jamel Hill have? Basically nothing. And I've seen her on a video for the complex. Okay, and Clay Travis should check this out, where she actually says that she gets her Twitter followers to bully people who oppose her. So yeah, you can read enough about that in this chapter. Then he goes into Colin Kaepernick's protest making no sense, and he goes at it from the perspective that Colin Kaepernick actually didn't have any stated goal for his protest, which was a very it was a very vague message saying that he was against police brutality and injustice and social disorder and things like that. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said. And therefore, there was no way to satisfy the goals of his protest. So that's why he said it made no sense. And I'm not really commenting much about Kaepernick these days because I think it's a stupid topic. And how much more of this can we take? And then he compares Kaepernick to Muhammad Ali in that people were making these comparisons. I would say he contrasted them more justifiably because Muhammad Ali paid a definite price. He had to give up his title. He was convicted and sentenced to jail. He never served in jail, but the conviction in and of itself was a punishment at the time that precluded him from certain rights that a non-convict citizen would enjoy. So all of those factors are things that Colin Kaepernick never suffered from his protest. On the contrary, he's been given all sorts of awards. I think he was given an international ambassador status from Amnesty International or something. So all these accolades were heaped on Colin Kaepernick. So he never really suffered for his protest, apart from the fact that he doesn't have a team. And for that, he goes through the laundry list of issues that he had with negotiating with the Ravens and the Seahawks and whatever, which we're not going to get into. Enough's been said about that, and we don't have enough time because I'm trying to wrap this up in 3 minutes. Then he goes into the disparity between the number of people that are left-wingers and right-wingers in sports media. And then he goes into the Michael Bennett and LeBron James incidents from, I think it was 2017, when LeBron James had a racial slur sprayed on the gate of his Brentwood, California home, and Michael Bennett was arrested and then released promptly in Las Vegas. And he gives great breakdowns for those. So I'm going to save that for the book. He gives very detailed and very nuanced breakdowns of both of those incidents and what's the significance of them and why they're such overblown and ridiculous examples of racism, because in reality either nothing happened or nothing can be proven to have happened. So I'll tell you this, okay? You should buy this book, I believe, if you're interested in the topic of the intersection of sports and politics and why it's really gotten out of hand. Sports is too political, and it's not really common for you to be able to enjoy a game as it used to be, with people without having some sort of political connotation be thrown into it, the way Sean King did during the Super Bowl between the Patriots and the Atlanta Falcons in 2017. So I would say this: you should if you want to, you should read the book. I highly recommend it. There's a couple examples I think he left out, but all the topics, and by the way, the last topic, comparing Michael Jordan and LeBron James, he makes a fantastic case. I couldn't get through everything in a half hour, but all of it really shows you and it explains to you why sports and entertainment in general. He could have broadened it to beyond sports, but people are, they're really losing their audiences. They don't really know how to communicate to the people who are the fans and the people that make them the successes that they have been. Now, there's always going to be somebody at the top, but the question is, how great do they become? And I think the less politics there is in there, the greater sports can become. And I think I agree with most of his case, if not all of it. Have a great day. And please like this video, share this video, subscribe to this video, and subscribe to this channel, and subscribe to my other channel, Razor Ray Live Wounds. And I will talk to you guys later.